We will now continue with the Turkic monsters of myth chapter. Turkish monsters and creatures are varied and dark, often interacting with humans and causing tragedy and loss. These mesmerizing monsters were obscure, ageless, and infinitely terrifying to encounter or even think of. They are the vivid depiction of a nightmare. Join me as we learn more about these fascinating creatures. Basty is an evil spirit in Turkish mythology similar to a nightmare. It rides on people's chests in their sleep and holds them down so they can't move or breathe. It also causes bad dreams. In addition, it rides horses at night, leaving them exhausted the next day and unable to work. It is generally regarded as feminine and appears as a beautiful woman dressed in white or yellow, but sometimes it appears as an ugly hag. It can shapeshift as well into any shape it pleases. Regardless of form, it can fly and usually enters a house through the keyhole. Once inside, it sits on the chest of those sleeping and inflicts horrible nightmares. Those it attacks wake up in a panicked fever, unable to move. It can torture men with dreams of desire, and over time, it will drain away their life. In other versions of the legend, it attacks those with a guilty conscience. Protections against a Basty include placing a knife under a pillow. Archura usually appears a man, but he is able to change his size from that of a blade of grass to a very tall tree. His hair and beard are made from living grass, and is sometimes depicted with a tail, hooves and horns, and he had no shadow. Archura protects the animals and birds in the forest and tells them when to migrate. He can shape-shift into many different forms. As a human, he looks like a peasant with glowing eyes. Archuras are terribly mischievous beings. They have horrible cries, and can imitate voices of people familiar to wanderers and lure them back to their caves, where the Archuras will tickle them to death. They also remove signs from their posts. They aren't evil, although they enjoy misguiding humans and kidnapping young women. They are also known to keep grazing cattle from wandering too far into the forests and getting lost. Sometimes more than one Archura inhabits a forest, and then they will fight for their territory, knocking down trees and scaring animals. Karakoncolos is the boogeyman from Turkish mythology. Traditionally, he's around during the coldest months, where he stands on street corners on winter nights waiting for passers-by and asking them riddles. If the traveler gives an answer that includes the word black, then the Karakoncolos lets them go on their way. But if the passerby fails to use that word, or indeed fails to answer at all, the Karakoncolos strikes them dead with a single blow. He sometimes uses powers of disguise to pretend to be a loved one, and lure the householder out into the snow. Once outside, the person finds themselves caught in a trance, unable to move. They stand there frozen to the spot until the cold takes over and they wind up freezing to death. Also, he sneaks into houses and lingers behind the doorways of children's bedrooms. As the child goes through the doorway, the Karakoncolos stretches out a hand and grabs the child by the neck before dragging them off to eat them. One way of getting rid of him is to set fire to some silk or thread. He will respond by setting his own fur on fire and will run from the house screaming to find water. Traditionally, each house has a Bichura. He would pull the hair of women to warn them about imminent danger from an abusive man. He would also moan and howl to warn of troubles to come. If he showed himself, it warned of death, and if he cried, it was said to be because of a death in the family. Bichura can chase horses in the stables at night, and steal grain from neighbors to feed them. If Bichura becomes unhappy, it plays nasty tricks on the members of the family. These include moving and rattling small objects, breaking dishes, leaving muddy little footprints, causing the walls of the house to creak, knocking on pots and moaning. If the family is unable to determine the cause of their discontent, the Bichura can rectify the situation and return things to normal. More often than not, however, families live in harmony with the spirits, and no problems arise. When home builders wanted to do something harmful to the person buying the house, they bring in Bichura. Once inside, it's hard to get her to leave. Uylak in Turkic mythology is a male or female witch or spirit. They are thought to be people connected to the devil, and are capable of harming other human beings by sending illnesses, killing cattle, or spoiling a harvest. The word Uylak was also used as an insult, and he is also resistant to Archura's enchantments. It stops people on desolate roads and infests them with its evil spirit. Uylak is believed to haunt those who wander or travel at night. It has been said that they appear in the eyes of people in the form of objects, such as coffins, alongside creatures such as dogs, sheep, cats, and even humans. They are generally defined as imaginary creatures who speak to a person by name, verbally abuse, stone, mock, taunt, and make frightening words. They were exaggerated so much from time to time that they were associated with the belief of jinn, even though they did not show similar characteristics. Ubir, in Turkish mythology, is a vampire who subsists by feeding on the life essence of living creatures. He is a large-headed, long-tailed being. Usually wizards who have perished turn into Ubir. He can stay still for days or even months. Once he's hungry, he can fly to find nourishment. He does not fear anything or anyone, because he is fear itself. He can spread infectious diseases around it and kill everything in his path. He eats whatever or whoever he finds. He can also take any shape he wants whenever he wants depending on the prey. He's known to be disguised as a wolf or wild dog and feasted on sheep. They also gather at the top of a mountain and eat people they've kidnapped. Anyone with a Ubir infection starts to look like him, and they cannot get enough to eat. Ubir is an insatiable, raging, greedy creature that swallows everything in its path. Ubir also likes to suck women and animals' blood, however. He prefers to eat them whole. Yelbeghen is a multi-headed man-eating monster in the mythology of Turkic peoples of Siberia, as well as Siberian Tatars. In ancient Altai legend, there was a seven-headed ogre, Yelbeghen, that would take revenge on the sun and the moon by eating them. This ogre sometimes chewed the stars in his mouth and broke them into pieces and then spit them out. Therefore, stars used to run away from him into the sky. The god Algan shot arrows at Yelbeghen to repel him, and return everything to its natural order. According to the Altai people, a lunar eclipse used to take place because of this ogre. Yelbeghen is generally considered to be a creature separate from dragons and a polar opposite to them in its nature. It is a being of pure evil, a dragon-like beast and dreadful monster with no reason, that usually lives in dark and hostile places, or guards unreachable locations. It is often depicted with 3, 7 or 9 heads and breathes fire. Bukrek is the benevolent dragon fighting other malignant, or evil beings in Turkish mythology. He is also called Baka, or Bukra. Bukrek helps all people in the world who are in imminent danger. According to legend, every 1,000 years, Bukrek goes down to the earth and controls any atrocious events happening around the world. Its features are that of a dragon. He has a long neck, strong claws, but does not possess the ability of flight, given that it does not have wings, and a voice that can be heard from anywhere in the world. It is said that he fought with Sangul, the dragon who represented the evil forces of the world, for 9 years. And finally he was able to defeat the evil dragon by beheading him, with one final blow of his strong claws. It is believed that since the war was over, Bukrek has lived in the ocean where all seas meet, resting until he has to come back to Earth, and obliterate any evil that has returned since his last appearance.